and welcome back to Planet Nibiru. Today we're going to be talking with a very special guest, Mr. John DiNardo. He is a Planet X researcher, and he has been studying Planet X and its approach for many years. He's very insightful. He has a whole bunch of knowledge that he's going to be sharing with us, and I am very excited to have him on. We're very lucky to have him on to speak to our community, and we've spoken in the past, and he's just a great guy, in addition to being just a wealth of knowledge about Planet X. So with that, thanks, John, for coming back, or for coming on, and it's good to have you here.
Well, thank you for bringing me together with you and your audience so that we can help to prepare one another for the disasters that are bound to be coming. And that's the whole purpose of our discussion here, is to alert people to the vital information that is being withheld by our government, by the diabolical rulers who really do not represent the people. These are evil people who have connived and lied and murdered their way to the top. They had no way represent the people. They are criminals, and everyone knows this. It has gotten to the point where it's just blatantly obvious to everyone. So we have to work together to help to protect each other's lives, because the government certainly is about to go underground, and they have their literally trillion dollar underground facilities that they have been building for several decades. That's very well documented. In fact, on my Vimeo channel, vimeo.com, you can look up my name on vimeo.com. You will find, if you go through all the numerous videos that I put up there, one of them actually has ex-Governor Jesse Ventura's visit to their underground facilities at Cheyenne Mountain, in the bowels of Cheyenne Mountain, and it's just spectacular what they have there. Lavish facilities for the few who rule, and not for the remainder of the population. They have blast doors that weigh several tons, and their security chief, their Colonel Wynn, Robert Wynn, I believe his name is, stated on this video with Jesse Ventura that if there is any kind of disaster, such as massive solar blasting, meteor showers where the people would want to go underground, they're not going to get in, because those blast doors will be closed before they even get there.
I see, exactly.
The government thinks of us, so we have to work together. The update on 2017 for Planet X is...
Yes.
It looks to me, I mean, I've just gotten so overloaded with information, working on other issues besides Planet X, that I just have not had the time. I would need a whole staff of people, which I don't have, to really study the graphs and the data on the earthquakes, on the volcanic eruptions, on the sinkholes. Just think about this. The sinkholes alone are one manifestation of these earth disasters, and we're seeing more sinkholes. We're seeing more train derailments. Why would there be train derailments? Well, the earth is becoming less stable, and there's so many other manifestations of the earth's disaster, becoming disturbed from within. But we can keep track of them. One of them, I guess, would be looking at meteors. Meteors is one thing that the power elite find difficult to conceal from the people, because the people can see these shooting stars that come down.
Right, of course.
And what it is they're objects from space that are being dragged in gravitationally by larger objects, and as they pass, they're being dragged in and being pulled toward that great gravitational anchor, our sun, whose mass is approximately 300,000 Earth masses. So it's a great gravitational magnet, so to speak. So when it pulls these comets in, and the comets accompanying asteroids and meteors, they get sucked into the Earth's gravitational force field as they pass by Earth, as if they get close enough. It's like getting close to a whirlpool. If you get too close, you'll get sucked in. Well, that's what is happening to many of these meteors. They're getting sucked into Earth's gravitational force field as they get too close to Earth passing by. And naturally they come plummeting to Earth, accelerating to Earth, and again, the friction of these meteors creates such heat, intense heat, that most of the meteors actually explode. They light up, and they appear to be what is commonly called shooting stars. And some of them actually make impact with the Earth. We have now more numerous sightings. The American Meteor Society, AMS.org, I believe it is, AMS.org. If you go there, you can look up a number of meteor sightings that citizens have reported to the American Meteor Society, and they keep count of them. And we think,
yeah, I think there's one that's supposed to pass either on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day.
Good point. I mean, I've been, there's so many facets. I look at this whole Planet X issue as being analogous to a huge, multifaceted ball, and every of the thousands of different facets on it represents one side issue that connects to the major issue of Planet X. And one of the facets is people disappearing, politicians resigning, military officers, high-ranking officers resigning. Where are they going? Retiring. The Queen of England. For a long time, I've suspected that the Queen of England, Prince Philip, and the royal family they have doubles. They have always had doubles. I have a photograph I like to dig out somewhere that shows both a close-up of Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, and they certainly don't look exactly. I mean, they've done a pretty good job of getting people who look like them, and they probably have had plastic surgery to improve their likeness. But still in all, they don't look exactly like them. So we have to watch out for the Queen going underground. I was told by another talk show host a long time ago that the Queen, this was way back in around 2003, the British Royal Crown has purchased large tracts of land in and around Crestone, Crestone, Colorado, which is not far from, I believe, I haven't checked it on the map, but I believe it's not too far from the Cheyenne Mountain underground facility. And incidentally, that Cheyenne Mountain underground facility is only about, I think it's 19 miles from the Denver airport. Even the police told Jesse Ventura in its documentary on True TV, which I was fortunate enough to DVD record when it came out several years ago, because they've taken it off. I can't find it on YouTube anymore. So that's a clear indication to you that the power elite do not want people to see Jesse Ventura's expose of the underground facility at Cheyenne Mountain, where they intend to take the ruling elite and shut out everyone else when disaster strikes. They don't want the people to see it. But luckily, I was able to DVD record it myself, and I put it up on Vimeo. And Vimeo, I think, is a lot less policed than YouTube is.
No, that's true. Vimeo is a lot more relaxed as far as their standards and things like that. They don't tend to mess with you very much as far as your content and things like that. However, I don't believe they have as big an audience, but it is a more quality experience, I believe.
Well, you should, because, actually, as you know, we have to pay $70 a year for that privilege of getting a better treatment on Vimeo than we get on YouTube.
Yes.
But anyway, that video is up on there, and I should, I've got to remember to send you the link to it, to Jesse Ventura True TV, which is a major channel on cable, True TV, TRU TV. It's a major channel, and they took him off because he was he exposed too much truth, that it was really incriminating to the power elite. He had one program that incidentally would prove that they have mind control, where they hypnotize people And they had a man on there whose name he would not reveal his name, but he actually had the courage to go on, and he was a CIA agent who was involved with these mind control assassins. Our solar system, you've probably heard this, is going through the galactic plane.
Yes.
The galactic plane has it's like a disc, a swirling disc in space with cosmic dust and planets and solar systems,
right,
the whole, great many solar systems in that galactic disk. So there's going to be greater forces on our solar system, disturbing forces. So it's a gradual thing. It's not turning on a light switch, but a gradual change in our system. But they made a date so that said, 2012, and I've got some of the documentaries that I DVD recorded also on the History 2 channel where they talked about all the prophecies about 2012. A lot of them have valid information, but it's just that you can't say that date is the end of the world. It's the beginning of the end, and other people have said that too. They said 2012 is basically the beginning of the end. It's going to be a slow process of degradation in the climate of the Earth and in the geological activity of the Earth.
So last time we spoke, you had talked about the Earth's core being kind of off-center or off-balance. Can you go into that a little bit and tell us a little bit about that?
Well, all geophysicists now believe that this is a very commonly accepted theory about the Earth's core. If you look at visualize something like a ball with a very thick outer layer, which is the mantle of the Earth. It's made of molten rock, primarily molten rock. Very thick. Think of it as something thick like pudding. Okay, that's just to give it a vivid imagery. And within that thick outer layer is a deeper inner layer. Actually, it's molten iron, primarily molten metal. Excuse me. And within that cavity, that spherical cavity of molten metal lying deep beneath the mantle, is a solid iron core, which is the inner core. So you have two cores. You have a solid iron inner core and a molten metal outer core. So the inner core floats around, sort of like a cork. If you can imagine a cork floating on a bowl of water, and that bowl of water is sitting on a potter's spinning wheel, rotating around, such that the water in the bowl becomes swirling, in a constant, smooth, swirling motion. You can also think of it as a glass coffee cup filled with coffee, and you have a stirrer. The stirrer might represent, it's a stirring stick, or say a lollipop, okay? One of those lollipops with a solid ball at the end into the center of the coffee cup. And you put the stick of the lollipop between the palms of your hands, and you can actually rotate that lollipop stick. You can imagine what I'm describing. You can visualize it. The lollipop candy ball with it immersed in the center of the coffee would just rotate, and you would still have a smooth, swirling motion of the coffee. If you look at it through the glass cup, there would be no waves or ripples in the coffee. It would just swirl around rather smoothly. That's the way our Earth should be, with the core centered. Now, if the core were for some reason displaced, that center molten solid metal core within the molten metal outer core, floating around in that molten core, if that solid core was suddenly, somehow, or gradually displaced off center, it would still be rotating, but it would also be revolving around the center. Now, instead of just putting the lollipop stick between the palms of your hands and rubbing your hands together and rotating this lollipop, keeping it in place, centered within the cup of coffee, now you're moving it around. While it's rotating, you're stirring it like you would normally stir coffee. What's going to happen to the smoothness of the surface of the coffee. It's going to start to ripple. Waves will be created. And if you were to move that lollipop, if you move that, start swirling and stirring that cup the way people normally stir a cup of coffee, you're going to have a lot of waves. And that's what's happening. Now that solid metal inner core is beginning to rotate and revolve further and further away from the center. The farther away from the center it rotates, the bigger the circle is that solid ball inner core describes in its path, right? The greater, you move it farther away, it's getting closer to the rim of the coffee cup now, and because in so doing, it is going to create even greater waves, higher amplitude waves in the molten metal, which is likened to the coffee in the cup. So the coffee in the cup, or the molten metal in the outer molten core, is going to start rippling with higher amplitude waves. And how do we know this? We can actually see an image of it. And, it's funny that I looked and I couldn't find any scientist who knows this, who understands this. I don't know, I don't know why, but modern science really doesn't teach the basics that we used to learn years ago. And many people who have PhDs, they just don't seem to have the understanding. They go along with what's theories, and they're not understanding. I try to reach people, but they don't seem to. Some people seem to get it, but it takes a while. The greater ripples in the molten iron core of the Earth are being manifested as ripples in our jet stream, because the magnetic field of the Earth, when that swirling iron core, molten iron core, begins to ripple, that swirling core has always generated the Earth's magnetic field. I mean, this is commonly accepted by geophysicists, that the Earth's swirling magnetic molten iron outer core is actually what is the swirling motion of it, impregnated with many electrons. Electrons in motion, as we know, as basic physicists will tell you, it's a big principle of basic physics, that electrons in motion create a magnetic field that sort of like encircles the linear line of the electrons travel. So if you have electrons traveling, say like a dog, imagine a dog coming out of a swimming pool, and he's dashing out of the swimming pool in a straight line. And as he's running out, he's shaking all the water off of himself. And that droplets of water are spraying out in all directions around him in his path, a linear path in which he's running. That's sort of an analogy. Another analogy would be cars traveling through a tunnel. Each car might represent an electron moving in a straight line. And the walls of the tunnel, the circular walls of the tunnel, would represent the magnetic shape of the magnetic field that's generated by those moving cars or moving electrons. Line electron motion creates a magnetic field that runs coaxially concentrically around the line of travel of the electrons. Well, those electrons are impregnating our entire molten outer core due to beta radiation, that is the emission of electrons from their atoms. Beta radiation is basically defined as the emission of electrons from the valence bands of their atoms, and they become more or less like ions. So it's radiation, actually, which could be damaging to us. For example, if we were to experience beta radiation exposure, it would be some damage to our body because these electrons have higher energy. Earth is swirling. When the outer molten core is swirling, causing ripples, like high roller coaster-like ripples, then you're going to have a roller coaster-like magnetic field that's generated. And that roller coaster, abnormal roller coaster-like magnetic field, which is our Earth's magnetic field, then in turn creates the jet stream flow, which is commensurately ripply and roller coaster like. So now we have a roller coaster like jet stream, and you can see evidence of my theory that the swirling, irregular swirling of Earth's molten iron outer core eventually results in the roller coaster shape of the jet stream. Because I have the videotapes of the jet stream from the Weather Channel going back to 2004. Those roller coaster like ripples in the jet stream were rather small. They would come in and maybe they would be less the amplitude, the peak to peak amplitude, the highest peak and the lowest peak of each wave of the jet stream. The highest peak would never get as high as the Canadian border, and it would never get as low as the U.S.-Mexican border. And furthermore, those ripples were rather close together, so you could get 3 ripples of the jet stream within the entire west to east coast expanse of the United States. That was back around 2004, 2005, 2006, and I watched steadily year after year on the Weather Channel as those roller coasters got bigger and bigger, meaning that the amplitude, the peak amplitude got higher, the negative lower peak amplitude got greater, such that this peaks of the jet stream now would travel as far as the Canadian border and even higher north, further north than the Canadian border, and further south than the Mexican border, deep into Mexico, as you see them now. So it's gotten tremendously increased in amplitude, and also you no longer have 3 smaller cycles, 3 smaller jet stream waves within the U.S. territory. You have 1. So not only has it gotten bigger in amplitude, but it's stretched out in wavelength. What does that tell you? That tells you that that iron core, that solid iron core, that ball has gotten farther and farther away from the center, closer and closer to the mantle of the Earth, which is a big pudding-like molten rock mass, which is by far the deepest, thickest layer of all of the 3 layers that I just mentioned. Okay, so now when that ball gets close to the Earth's pudding-like molten rock, it starts to cause greater friction. This is all basic. I mean, even 9th grade science, really, that's what this is. You have greater friction when an object is moving away from the liquid medium, which is the molten iron outer core, and toward the more solid, highly viscous medium of Earth's mantle, molten core. So now the mantle is becoming disturbed and perturbed, and frictionally disturbed. And now what does that do? If you look at a common lava lamp that children have in their bedrooms, the lava lamp is very similar to the kinds of mantle plumes, or they're also called thermal plumes. What's another? It has several names: mantle plumes, thermal plumes, and some other one. But anyway, these are like the lava within your lava lamp. When the light bulb at the bottom, the base of the lamp is turned on, the heat from the light bulb gradually heats up that slime, that gooey lava, and when it heats up, the lava will rise up. We've all seen that. So that's a perfect piece of evidence to show us analogously what happens to the Earth's mantle when it gets overheated. It starts rising up with plumes that actually go up like, when you're cooking pudding in a pot, for example, you're making chocolate pudding. I don't know if you've ever made it.
Yes.
As it thickens, it starts out as very, very liquidy. And then as it begins to thicken, then you'll see popping. You'll see gas rising up, creating like little volcanoes, actually, in the pudding when the pudding actually comes to its maximum thickness. And that's precisely what happens to the Earth. You're seeing more and more mantle plumes coming up, and then gases are rising with it.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Now, could that have anything to do with all of the earthquakes that have obviously spiked over the past 15, 20 years? And especially in the last few years, we see a lot of, obviously around the Ring of Fire, but we're also seeing a lot in, like, say, Oklahoma, which traditionally don't get a lot of earthquakes, but obviously they're getting hundreds a week now. Could that have anything to do with it?
I mean, it's this Earth this hyperactivity and abnormal revolution of Earth's solid inner core is causing a lot of that, a lot of the earthquake activity. Because look, the mantle is getting heated up. You have greater friction now against the core, the mantle of the Earth, where the mantle meets the boundary line, where the mantle meets the molten iron core beneath it that I just described. When that meets the mantle, you get all that friction, and then you get pieces of the mantle begin to slough off into the molten iron outer core. And when that mantle sloughs off in there, now the viscosity of the molten iron outer core becomes greater, it becomes thicker, more viscous. And what happens when you have a more viscous liquid with an iron ball, the inner iron core rotating in a thicker, more viscous liquid? You have greater friction. Greater friction creates greater heat. So now the mantle plumes are getting worse. It's going to be like a domino effect. I think we're going to see an exponential increase, and you're noticing that now. You people are pretty aware of what's happening with the Earth in so many different ways. Changing your attitude takes time, and gradually, when they see events occurring over and over again, just like in the mass media, that's how they brainwash the public, by hitting them with the same story over and over again and the same theme. And that's eventually people begin to adopt the attitude, the state of mind that the mind controllers want the people to adopt. And likewise, when we become educated, not by propaganda, in this case, it's by real earthquake activity. And we're seeing the actual factual data that's coming in that proves to us that, hey, something's wrong with the Earth, but we've known it all along because we see a whole host of other anomalies.
You know, John, that is so true. We do see all of these different anomalies, and when it's not just earthquakes, it's the volcanism, it's the weather patterns, like you were talking about with the jet stream dipping down almost to Mexico now. You know, it has completely changed. We have experienced just a massive, massive amount of changes in the past, say, 15 years or so, maybe 17 years, really since the turn of this millennium here, and it has been just one thing after another, and it has snowballed. And personally, I believe that all of this is due and linked back to Planet X, or Nibiru, whatever you'd like to call it. We're going to go ahead and take a break here, and with that, we're going to wrap up this first section. This interview went on for about 2 hours, so this is going to be section 1. I think we're going to section it off into 4 different sections. We'll make it a half hour each section because there is so much good information here, and John just gives us just overwhelming insight into Planet X and the dynamics of it, and what it's doing and how it's affecting our planet. So I don't want you guys to miss any of that. I don't want to make a big 2-hour long video that people aren't going to watch. You know, if we can break it down into digestible pieces, about a half an hour each, I think that's going to be the best way to deliver the message from him on our channel. Anyway, this has been part 1. We will be coming back with part 2 soon, so please stay tuned, and we will see you guys very soon.